Well, good morning. Good morning. Post-election day hangover. This is my post-election hangover look, Ted. I was up fairly late and kept waking up through the night.
Mm-hmm.
So
I know
here
that.
it is. Hello, everybody. I am Manila Chan. That guy over there is Ted Rall. You are tuned in to the Ted Manila Information Show, TMI for short, where we just bring you way too much information. Anything from news, politics, lifestyle, culture, all that stuff, the taboo stuff, the occult stuff, anything and everything goes, because really you just can't have too much information. So if you're looking for a straight-laced, button-down news program, this show is not going to be for you. It's probably NSF. What is NS? Not safe for work.
Not safe for friggin' work.
Yeah, so you might want to turn the volume down if you do want to watch. It is stuff that you already know you want to hear about, and some stuff you didn't know that you needed to know. And we'll, of course, laugh about all of this stuff along the way. We are live Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern. So be sure to like and follow this show because it's with viewer support. That's the only way that we can keep going. So if you are on Rumble, on the desktop version, I implore you, please click that subscribe button to become a $5 per month monthly subscriber to support this show. It's right at the bottom of the chat area, so you can help us maintain this. The Ted and Manila Info Show starts now.
That always cracks me up. All right.
That's the point.
Let's get into the headlines. Donald Trump has won both the popular vote and the Electoral College. Currently here, 10 o'clock Eastern time, Donald Trump has been declared the winner by the Associated Press with 277 electoral votes so far. Many states remain uncounted. Kamala Harris coming in at 224. The states of Nevada, Arizona, Michigan, and Maine are still outliers. I'm going to personally call Michigan for Trump. Not only did the former president return to office effective January 20th, with an electoral college win, but also apparently a popular vote win as well. Currently standing at 71.3 million for Donald Trump versus 66.4 for Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris underperformed in many key sectors. We're going to get into a detailed analysis after the headlines. Trump managed to leverage anxieties about the cost of living and illegal immigration to defeat Harris, reclaiming the White House in a victory certain to alter the priorities of this country and the economic relationship of the United States with the world. Republicans have seized control of the U.S. Senate after picking up Joe Manchin's old seat in West Virginia, kicking out Sherrod Brown in Ohio, and beating back challenges in Florida.
We called it.
Nebraska, we did call it, and Texas right here on the show. Trump's second term is, of course, likely to look considerably different from his first. And, of course, we would like to think that Harris's loss would trigger some soul-searching and recrimination within the Democratic Party. We will see if that's true. I'm already hearing that Harris could possibly not have run a better campaign.
Oh, my God.
Trump won the key swing states of Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia, and defied Democratic hopes that Harris would carry Pennsylvania and Georgia as her president. Joe Biden did back in 2020. Trump did also win the popular vote, as I noted. He's the first GOP candidate to do so in 20 years. Harris struggled with young Democratic voters who apparently wanted to see greater changes, especially on issues like Gaza and climate change. Also, she underperformed with men generally, and generally with ethnic minorities like Blacks and Latinos. Yeah, I wonder why. Now, we haven't had any conversation about that at all. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has fired his defense minister Yoav Gallant, obviously using the U.S. election coverage as cover for what otherwise might have been a more controversial decision. The two of them have been disagreeing over the war in Gaza for a long time. If this feels like deja vu, it's because he also got rid of Gallant last year before the Gaza war, only brought him back as part of a unity cabinet as defense minister 2 weeks later due to mass protests. Why now? Well, Israel's currently fighting on multiple fronts against Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and an escalating tit-for-tat series of exchanges with Iran. It's a difficult moment to be replacing your defense minister, but Netanyahu said that he had a crisis of trust with Gallant.
Oh, but you know what?
Go ahead.
But you know what, Ted? Also in Ukraine, it's kind of a bad time to keep replacing your defense minister or the head of your armed forces. But, it's worked so well for Volodymyr Zelensky. So why not follow that model?
Yeah, Ukraine's doing great. Anyway, the Israel Katz, the country's top diplomat and a longtime Bibi ally who recently made headlines for banning the chief of the UN, Antonio Guterres, as a persona non grata. Okay, so you're not completely out of your friggin' mind. Will replace Gallant, and Katz will be replaced as foreign minister by Gideon Saar, an ex-rival of the PM, in a move that appears designed to help stabilize his very fragile coalition. The shift means that Netanyahu has an even tighter grip over Israel's prosecution of the war. Gallant frequently challenged Netanyahu's approach and pushed hard for a ceasefire agreement to bring about the release of hostages. And now he's gone. A distracted United States, of course, allowed this to happen. Gallant had a strong relationship with the Biden White House, which has often been at odds with Netanyahu. So the Israeli PM cannily got rid of him on election day in the U.S., hoping that the White House would be too preoccupied with the vote to issue any major objections. Not a dumb move. Fresh protests erupted over Netanyahu's decision on Wednesday. In Germany, the government of Europe's largest economy looked closer than ever to collapse as Germany's ruling coalition remains unable to agree on a budgetary package. The coalition's always been a little bit awkward, of a loveless marriage between Chancellor Olaf Scholz's center-left Social Democratic Party, the left-wing ecologist Green Party, and the center-right Free Democratic Party. But those differences hit a crisis level last week when the Free Democrats pushed forward a budget that included spending cuts and deregulation plans that Scholz didn't agree with, alongside emissions target postponements that pissed off the Greens. The larger picture is that Germany's economy is struggling quite severely. The government's trying to find ways to boost growth without running afoul of strict fiscal stability rules. Maybe it would have been a good idea to ask the Americans not to blow up the pipeline that supplied most of your country's natural gas. After the Free Democrats' proposal was rejected, the party leader told his coalition partners to draft their own proposals if they wanted to. The coalition meets today for a summit that could determine its future. If it can't bring it together, Scholz is going to have to choose whether to try to govern with a minority government until the next scheduled elections, which come up in the fall of next year, or call a snap election.
Olaf Scholz is toothless and spineless, and he has been run all over, washed up over by the Greens leader, the foreign minister, Annalena Baerbock. She's, the 43-year-old foreign minister that is really, I believe, she's the one actually running the show. Olaf Scholz has no guts. He's not standing up to her. She's effectively running the entire government and on top of the foreign policy, which has been disastrous because they keep pouring money into Ukraine at their own peril. So,
and if you just
get what you get.
If you're just joining us, by the way, it looks like the House of Representatives is almost certainly going to be a Republican. So this would be a Republican trifecta if expected. We're going to have a panel with both a progressive and a conservative joining us here, friends of the show, our friends. Mm-hmm. So just stay tuned. That's in a few minutes. Car makers in recent years have invested billions of dollars to bring new electric car models to market, hoping that consumer interest in the new cars would continue to grow. E-vehicle sales are still going up, but at a slower pace than in previous years. Many buyers have lingering concerns about their range. That would be part of my concern. And the lack of charging infrastructure. Yeah, trust me, here in Manhattan, there ain't none. A hesitation that has resulted in some models piling up on dealer lots. Car companies have slashed starting prices on their EVs this year in a bid to drum up demand, but those cars were already unprofitable for many large manufacturers, so the price cuts are only leading to more red ink for them. Manufacturers are now trying to match what consumers want. Imagine that in capitalism. Often, that means delaying or scrapping electric vehicles that might generate big losses or cutting output of certain cars. Those moves can be costly in the short term, Ford said in August that it expected to record nearly $2 billion in charges and write-downs after canceling plans to make a large electric SUV. It also means car makers like Ford and GM are going to have to continue to rely on their higher margin gas-powered trucks and SUVs to boost profits, even as government emissions requirements get stricter, although this might loosen up under a Trump administration who's not that into electric cars. Angie, am I hallucinating? Or I
Did you
thought
just call me Angie?
Sorry, sorry about that. Manila. That's a
wrong
throwback.
Asian.
That's a throwback there. Yeah.
That's okay. We like Angie.
We do like Angie, and we should have her on to talk about him. She's got to be walking in sunshine like Katrina in the waves right now. But
oh my God, yes.
I've got to ask you though. I mean, I thought that Ford had a very well-received electric F-150 truck, right? Isn't that like a very?
They did.
That's an electric.
I had it on loan.
Well-reviewed, and yeah.
When I was in California last year, I actually had it on loan for 3 weeks, and I was quite impressed by that F-150. It was the electric. It was a high dollar vehicle, but I was really surprised at how well it drove.
People said it was really powerful. They didn't expect that.
Yes, I was not expecting that. I was expecting it to be like a little Prius motor inside a big ass full size F-150.
Yeah, like please let me be going downhill.
Yeah. And it drove like a regular truck. In fact, I would say it drove the transmission actually changed gears, I think, smoother. Like you could feel it shifting as you're speeding. Just it was seamless. I was very impressed. So I'm actually a little surprised to hear that Ford is holding back on it, but they are very expensive. So
yeah, they are expensive. But it's a culture thing though. It's not like most people who drive regular F-150s and other huge trucks like that don't really need them. They don't have construction jobs or anything.
No, but on top of it, Ted, these EV batteries have not held up very well in cold northern climates. So
that's true. Oh, with climate change. But on the other hand, they contribute to climate change, which makes it warmer. So it's all part of the virtuous cycle of death as I sit here in New York City in November with an expected high of 77 degrees in the middle of major drought restrictions recently.
Yeah, but Shiva said that doesn't exist yesterday.
Right. Except that it does. And by the way, I don't know what they're going to do when there's no water left for New York City, but I guess we'll just all drink rosé. All right. Health officials
with that.
Health officials in Saskatchewan.
On that.
That's a province of Canada for people who are unfamiliar, are urging customers of Domino's Pizza in Martinsville to watch out for symptoms of typhoid fever. The restaurant's customers may have been exposed to Salmonella typhi, also known as typhoid fever, as you might have guessed. Anybody who consumed food or drink from the Domino's at 717 Centennial Drive South between October 11th and October 19th is at risk, according to the Saskatchewan Health Authority. The danger is not limited to pizza. Any food or beverage may have been contaminated. So, yeah, that's gross.
So before I've traveled abroad to like third world countries, I've actually had to take live typhoid pills and you store them in your refrigerator to, whatever. So you kind of inoculate yourself to it. I don't even know what the symptoms of typhoid are.
Well, you get an extremely bad fever. It really tears you apart. You get a splitting headache. You're nauseous. You have massive stomach cramps. And then here's the thing. You could either end up with mad constipation or mad explosive diarrhea. Either basically
eating Domino's anyway.
Yeah, your system basically just like goes crazy. Your digestive system loses it. You can die. Typhoid fever is very serious.
Oh, okay. Well, so this is a very scary thing, the exposure at this Saskatchewan.
It is.
Domino's.
It is not something to be right,
this is
looked down upon. But
this is not like a listeria thing or anything. This is like serious.
Well, listeria is pretty serious, but it's not like it's probably not going to kill you. Typhoid is bad. I mean, I don't know how many listeners we have in Saskatchewan, but if that's you, be on the lookout. And
I think
hit the.
I think that the important thing here is not just for the listeners in Saskatchewan. I think this actually speaks to Bobby Kennedy's whole Maha movement and questioning our whole food supply system and where things are coming from, things are sourced, and how clean we're actually eating. That it's not just America, it's North America's diet is shit, and so it's going to find a way to kill you. And here we are,
Yeah,
so
no,
this kind of
well,
just
that's
ties
true.
hand in hand.
All right. Well, speaking of things that might kill you, let's talk about our electoral system.
Yeah,
Let's say so.
can we bring in one of our guests?
Well, let's just first tee it up, and then we'll bring him in, and then we'll,
Okay.
All right. So I just wanted to first say that this is I just want to really sort of savor this moment and just set the table, right? I mean, we're talking about, if you just think about where Donald Trump was 4 years ago, he was, after January 6th, he was impeached a second time. His popularity, his approval rating was absolutely in the toilet. He subsequently was dinged $500 million by a New York judge for business fraud. He was dinged over $100 million in the E. Jean Carroll sexual assault claim in civil court. He's been convicted of 34 felony counts, granted over kind of minor things, but still 34 felony counts. He's been subject of a RICO investigation in the state of Georgia. There's a January 6th federal investigation still ongoing with Jack Smith. And you're talking about a guy who, basically could not be more intemperate or controversial. And yet he has won re-election. He's pulled off a feat in American politics. The last time someone left office, was gone, and came back into the presidency was Grover Cleveland. He did that in 1892. He had been one of my favorite stories is he was elected originally in 1884, running against Blaine. He served until 1888. But he ran against Benjamin Harrison, challenged him successfully. And when the Clevelands were moving out of the house, Mrs. Harrison was famously said goodbye to Mrs. Cleveland. And Mrs. Cleveland, who was quite a spitfire, said, "Don't change the decor. I'll be back in 4 years." And she was. But that's the last time that's happened. It's impossible to overstate just how incredibly a dramatic turn of events this is.
Yeah.
And the repercussions. I mean, you're talking about a guy, he doesn't owe the media anything. Quite the contrary. They hated him. We've been told that his return imperiled American democracy, that we would go into authoritarianism, maybe dictatorship, maybe the Constitution would be gone completely. And he's pretty much going to have a trifecta. He has a conservative Supreme Court. He has a conservative. He's going to have a Republican Senate, maybe up to 55 seats, 52 seats for sure. The House probably is going to go his way too. And by the way, the scale of his victory is not really quite known, but it's going to be on the Electoral College map. I think it's safe to say it'll be close to 300 to whatever Kamala Harris ended up getting. I mean, This is absolutely a shocker in the world of politics.
Yeah. I'm not that shocked. I know yesterday before the show was over, I obviously none of us knew who was going to win. And I thought Harris might eke it out. But I'll tell you, Ted, when I got to the polls, there was a different vibe there. And I felt a different energy. And I went, oh, shit, I think Trump might actually win. My polling place looked different, if you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean.
It looked different than it ordinarily does.
I'm probably the only person in my precinct who did not vote for Kamala Harris. I voted for Jill Stein. I don't think anybody voted for Trump.
I'm going to say that people that I've never seen at the polls, and I go vote for everything, were there, and different types of folks. And I thought, Trump might actually win. And sure enough, he did. And I kept waking up through the middle of the night to see if it was still holding true. And I revealed who I voted for. I'm sorry I didn't save it for the show. I actually spilled it on our our guest, his program last night. So with that, let me go ahead and just bring him in for a second, Ted.
Let's do it.
So because he's early and I want to utilize that time that we have our buddy here.
Yeah, we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, that right there is Craig Pasta Jardula, host of the Pasta to Go podcast, friend of our old shows, anyway, all of our old shows. And I revealed on his program last night, his live stream, who I voted for. And for the first time in my life, I cringed when I did it, Pasta. And you know this. I said so. And by the way, your mic is muted, so you might want to unmute. But I voted for that guy, for Donald Trump. And I voted GOP straight ticket for the first time in my life, not because I support Trump per se. I guess by way of voting, I supported him, tacitly, but it's not like I'm a champion of Trump, but I think there were a lot of people like me at the polls yesterday that did just that just kind of grit their teeth and just filled in that little bubble and said, fuck it. I'm doing it because fuck the Democrats. Fuck them. They have, first of all, put up a nominee that wasn't a real nominee, that got no electoral votes or no party votes to begin with, to be on top of the ticket. So I think there were a lot of people like me that wanted to punish the Democrats. And
it was a rage vote for you.
It was a rage vote completely. And I've never done it before, but I did it. And for the first time, I can finally say I picked a winning president for the first time. Now, what he does, I don't know. I can't vouch for that, but I just want to say at least once in my life, I picked a winning horse. So, Pasta, what do you got to say?
Well, good morning, Ted. Good morning, Angie. It's great to be on your show.
Hey, why is everyone calling me Angie? Racist.
I can't let my guy Ted be the only guy. They're both be in the doghouse.
Thank you, Pasta. I appreciate it.
Well, welcome to the end of democracy. It's over, I guess, now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pure fascism, which, even though, I like to come on the show and I often bump heads with Ted and we have disagreements and stuff. I'm going to have a big disagreement right off the bat. I want to say the things that, Ted, you had listed when we were talking about Donald Trump, those were the things that actually, I think, moved him to a victory. I think people are done with the lawfare. They saw it as lawfare. They saw the mainstream media or the lamestream media talk about things that really have no significance in their life. J6, they wouldn't let it go. The felonies, this and that.
Mm-hmm. The abstraction of electoral democracy.
It is. And I really, to tell you the truth, I've had the hunch that after RFK joined the campaign, my gut was telling me it's going to be Donald Trump. And me personally, being a non-team sports guy, I always look to take on the biggest threat. And at that moment in time, Donald Trump became the biggest threat. I had bagged on the Democrats. And Ange, I was kind of like you, not completely, right? I didn't want Donald Trump to win, but I did want the Democrats to lose, right? I did.
Yes.
I don't want these son of a bees to win.
I felt they did not deserve to win.
No.
And they took a big, we got to talk about this. With the exception barely of the Tim Walz pick, they took a huge dump on progressives and on the left inside their own party. They didn't throw them a bone, right? There was not even like, we kind of care about the people in Gaza. There was no promise of doing anything about, stagnant wages or even something simple like the minimum wage, which would have had bipartisan support among most voters. It's been stagnant since $7.25 an hour on the federal level since 2009. That's outrageous considering where inflation is. So it's, there just hasn't, they literally broadcast this after October 7th. We don't have to do anything for the progressives. We can support Netanyahu wholeheartedly because they have no choice. What are they going to do? Vote for Trump? Well, Manila has an answer to that. Yeah.
Did that surprise you though, Tim? I'm Tim. Ted, I'm thinking about Tim
No.
Kaine, right? Because the same thing happened with Hillary Clinton. There was much more progressives front and center. This particular time, the progressives were gone. They really weren't around. They weren't part of the party. Anybody who stuck around after the Bernie Sanders movement was more establishment friendly, had a history of capitulating to power. So I don't think that decision was as much as a nose in the face. It was like same old, here they go again. But I think we need to start concentrating on the areas of Donald Trump where there's a serious threat. I mean, there's areas in foreign policy, there's areas in domestic policy.
Sure.
But I think you're going to see it right out of the gate. Manila, your favorite newscaster, Rachel Maddow, right? She's already starting in again with the just baseless attacks on Donald Trump, right? And who are we blaming this morning? By the way, are we blaming uneducated white men? Are we blaming black women? I mean, who are the Democrats?
But they don't have it.
Who else are
They can't yet. They can't, Pasta, because Donald Trump not only won the Electoral College, but he also won the popular vote. And then he outperformed Harris at every single freaking metric that you can think of. If you want to say, it's gay, transgender, Native Americans, he outperformed her there too. He outperformed her in every segment of the demographic, and especially in all
Trump
of those
carried
key
Ann
swing
Arbor.
states.
Trump carried Ann Arbor.
Like the Rachel Maddows of the world, they don't have a leg to stand on because he also won the freaking popular vote. And in the places where Kennedy and Stein were still on, or Kennedy and Stein were allowed to be on the ticket or still on the ticket, between the two, like places like Michigan, for example, between those two, we're looking at roughly like 1.2 million votes. He beat her by more than that. Mm-hmm. So they got nothing to stand on. So
well, not to mention,
what are they going to blame?
Not to mention libertarian Chase Oliver, who obviously draws more from Trump than from Harris. Polled about the same as Jill Stein. So those two spoiler effects cancel each other out.
Virginia was the one area where the progressives or the leftists, the combination of Jill Stein, Cornel West, and Claudia de la Cruz from the PSL party, that's the only area where they might have cost Kamala Harris a state, Virginia. But guess what? You give her Virginia, she still loses at the end of the day. And I think the Democrats need some serious self-reflection. And I've been saying this for quite some time. I think they pick Kamala Harris, guys, because they want to lose. Now they can fundraise like crazy from the people who do have TDS.
True.
And unfortunately, people still do have TDS. So, I mean, I think we have a big task in front of us. We need to get some serious, actual, nuanced, issues with Donald Trump. Criticisms of sorts, because I mean, there's a lot of things. I've been writing a list of areas where we need to concentrate in which Trump is a threat, and there's a lot, so I wouldn't be too happy, America. I don't think we're returning to democracy. However, I think there are a lot of us kind of crossing our fingers and hope that he would lift some sanctions. I'm not counting on it. Either way, we're going to be here, whether we're on a smaller platform or not.
Right.
But we'll see. There's a lot of things to be concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the hope, if there is any, is that maybe he's learned lessons from round one, by bringing in all of the swamp things like Pompeo, Bolton, like all of these people. Like these are the people that literally undermined everything he said he wanted to do. And those are exactly the types of people in his administration that caused him to betray his MAGA base. His base hates those people. Like, I'm not a member. I hate those people too. I'm not a member of his base, obviously, right? I hate those people too. And that's where the overlap is, that I feel like the Democrats don't seem to understand, is people that come from the left hate all those people, like the Cheneys. Wherever the Cheneys go, fuck that, I'm going in the other direction. And that's exactly what I did. And I use them as my weather vane. Wherever the Cheneys go, I go in the other direction. And there are people like me out there that overlap with the MAGA base, right? That are like, we don't like those people, the Boltons, the Haleys, the Pompeos. We don't want that. Do you think people are still holding out hope that he learned that lesson from round one?
Of course there are. I mean, unfortunately, the majority of people who vote in the United States are low-informed voters. You hear it all the time. I don't do politics. I don't do politics. Yeah, okay. That's a luxury. Well,
Politics
is
does
do you, right? Ah,
That's true.
you know, who said Marianne Williamson said that a couple years on the campaign trail. I don't know who originally said it, but she did repeat it. But I mean, I think I think a lot of people just think that Donald Trump is going to, you know, what he saw on Twitter, you know, and I still say we're operating blind over here, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, we don't know what's going on with our speech, with our platforms. There's no open source system. We don't know how certain voices are lifted, some are put down. But I mean, this seemed like kabuki theater to me. Like I said, it was almost like they flipped the switch. Even Mark Zuckerberg, after the assassination attempt, was like, "Oh, that was badass." You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
this is going to be interesting moving forward. I haven't watched the meltdown on MSNBC or CNN yet. Ted, how is it, by the way?
Oh, sorry, Ted. There was a mute happening there.
I have been, I have not been watching that. I've been busy doing interviews, but I look forward to watching it. It's going to be,
Yes.
I got an amazing tweet from another left-wing journalist like you, Manila, who voted for Trump, and she said, "Did you notice that all of my journalist friends who are either unemployed or underemployed called the election correctly?" And, you know, all of the ones who are employed at major networks and so on and newspapers, they all got it wrong. Why is that?
What a coincidence. Actually, can we bring in our other unemployed friend and
Let's do it. Courtesy of the
political
Biden
analyst?
administration.
That's right. It's all, and you know, Biden's out there laughing somewhere. I don't know where the hell he is, but let's add our buddy up here. Let's bring him up if he's ready. Let me get this. I'm trying to punch the keys. Hey, there is.
I see you. I hear you and see you.
I know that
Malik
guy.
Abdul, former co-host of Fault Lines on Radio Sputnik and Atomic MAGA. I mean, did you keep that moniker, Malik? Are you still Atomic MAGA?
No, I softened it a bit to just your favorite Republican.
Okay.
So I did soften it just a little bit.
Okay. So you were backstage listening. Talk to us about his win. I'm going to try to get the logo off of Pasta's face.
Yes. So it was, for me, so two things. It was a shocker. Not that Donald Trump won, but what seems to be the margins by which Donald Trump won. Because we expected it. Most of, I was doing media hits, and so most people were expecting that 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, we would still be pouring over votes. They would be coming in from Pennsylvania. There's no way that Pennsylvania would have been called. Well, all of that was wrong. Not only was all of that wrong, if you actually go and look at the polls, he's kind of performing outside of the margin of error, even in the polls. So it was shocking. Yeah, it's shocking that
he's up by 3.5% in the popular vote.
Wow.
And so that was not expected. I mean, the Real Clear Politics average as of yesterday morning had her up by 0.4%. So he exceeded by basically 4%.
Yeah, and that is amazing that he was able to do that. And keep in mind, and I'm sure you guys have already talked about it before, but what we're talking about here is first of all, he becomes the second president to win in a concurrent election, non-concurrent election since the 1893 win, I think, of Grover Cleveland.
Correct.
So this is already historic. Donald Trump being under investigation, Russia investigation, or special counsel investigation for almost 2.5 years. Donald Trump has 4 indictments over 90-something counts. He's been called a carnival barker. He's been impeached twice. He's been assassinated almost twice. And in so many ways, it's almost like Donald Trump, if Donald Trump won, Donald Trump was supposed to win. Like, this wasn't a fluke.
Yes.
Like, you could say that in 2016 that it was a fluke, You cannot say that for all of the disadvantages that Donald Trump had working against him, that he didn't just win, he won convincingly. Like, that is the shocker.
Handily.
Yeah, that he was able to win so
I mean, it's
convincingly.
not a landslide. 3.5% does not a landslide make, but it's, you know, it's there's no question. Let's put it this way. If it was the other way around and she had won 51 to 47.5, he'd have a hard time claiming that he'd been cheated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like that.
Beyond the margin of cheating.
Right. And you're not going to hear anything from Donald Trump about paper ballots forever and a day more.
Early voting.
He's not going to
That's the shame
complain.
here, by the way. That's the real problem right now for an election integrity activist. I am so scared that this movement is going to go back to sleep. I mean, the movement was tainted once the conservatives got a hold of it after 2020, but I'm just afraid it's going to go back to sleep and everybody's going to be like, all right, the system's okay. It doesn't need to be fixed or reformed. Oh, yes, it does.
Well, I guess maybe you can make some liberal allies who will now suddenly discover that they don't trust paper ballots now that they haven't worked out for them as well. Guys, let's talk about foreign policy. I think the biggest argument in favor of voting for Harris, at least as far as people on my side of the aisle, has been that for the people of Gaza, Trump would be even worse than Harris. He's a close ally of Israel. He moved the capital. He moved the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem and so on. And he told Bibi very famously a few days ago, do what you have to, right? But we've also gotten reports from behind the scenes that seem to indicate that he's told Netanyahu, like, wrap it up. I want this to be over soon. I don't want to be coming in and having to deal with this when I'm president. And that might be part of the reason that Netanyahu has been going fast and hard for the last year. What happens there? I mean, is the meat grinder of Gaza going to keep grinding away there and in Lebanon, or is there a call now between burning up between Mar-a-Lago and Tel Aviv, saying like, Bibi, you're on notice. Bring it in for a landing in 2 months.
Like, hey, dude, chill. You think that's going to happen?
Who wants to go first? Malik, you want to go on that?
Go ahead,
No,
Pasta.
Well, I was just going to say, like, people on your side of on our side on the aisle, I should say, I still kind of like, everybody here, like, I don't necessarily think they're left or right. I think that we have some populist ideas that we all share together. I think we all don't want to see wars expand.
Right.
So, I mean, the only reason why I put that left-right paradigm out front, because I want people to understand it's okay for us to talk to each other, right? Put aside cancel culture. But when you're talking about the left, or the people who are saying, oh my Lord, Kamala Harris will be better than Donald Trump on foreign policy. Well, they just haven't been paying attention to what's been going on, or they've been watching too much Rachel Maddow, as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, right? They're on the brink of war in World War III, people think at this point. There's no way Ukraine can win this war. It's done. It's all but wrapped up. So it can either escalate to another level, meaning nuclear weapons, or they just stop and they move along and they concentrate somewhere else, the empire that is. But if you're looking at foreign policy, I think that's the reason why a lot of people independent-minded people chose to go with Donald Trump. They think that he's, said he's going to wave his magic wand and end the war in 24 hours.
Hold on. I'm under, I think a lot of people are like me, though, Pasta, that we're under no illusion that Trump is actually going to do all of those things, but he will be better on those topics than Kamala Harris. Because for sure, her weakness on Gaza and her inclination to keep pushing in Ukraine was stated, on the campaign trail. So for people like me, even people with lower information voters, even people like me, I think we still feel like, okay, I know it's the lesser of the two evils or whatever. It's still evil. I get that. But somebody's got to win. So I hate all the people that are out there going, lesser of two evils doesn't count. It's still evil. Or, shit is still shit is still shit. I get that. But somebody has to win. One of these people's going to win. And it wasn't going to be Jill Stein. And it wasn't going to be Chase Oliver. And it wasn't going to be Dr. Cornel West. Period. Point blank. it would be great if, now more people are aware of these third, fourth, and fifth parties that are available as options to them. But the bottom line is it was a two-person race. And I think for a lot of people, like myself included, that there's a chance that perhaps there would be curbing of the bloodshed by picking the orange man, because he is a big orange middle finger to the establishment, or so we hope.
Yeah. And I think a lot of low-informed voters from Trump's side did repeat that whole thing. He didn't start any new wars. Well, he didn't end them. And he also upped the drone warfare by 300%. I think everybody in this panel here.
He did end Afghanistan. I mean, he opened
He didn't end Afghanistan. And he said on the Mark Levin show that if he would plan to keep a base there to antagonize China, he never planned to pull out. And it was years until the very end of his campaign when he got Colonel Douglas McGregor involved and said, let's get out of there. Far too late. So he never did end that war. He wasn't with Rand Paul on the floor over there using the bully pulpit to say, let's end this war and let's defund this war. It's a misconception. If you look at Donald Trump's war history, record Pentagon contracts, funding the Saudis to kill the Yemenis. I mean, the list goes on, trying to whack Nicolas Maduro. He was no peace candidate. If you want to make the argument that he was better than Kamala Harris, because what we saw of a Russia-Ukraine, I can give you that. But to say he was a peace candidate, no.
I'm not
That's
saying
what a lot of people kept on saying.
I wouldn't say that, but he did open negotiations with the Taliban. He did sign a withdrawal agreement that Biden followed through upon. I mean, that I just don't see that. I don't think that would have happened under.
He said on Levin that he was going to keep a base close to China in Afghanistan. He never intended to fully pull out.
Yeah, I think
so. I think that's probably, I think that's probably much too. Well, I don't think that's much too granular for voters. They don't unpack. And I don't think that it's just necessarily low information. People typically don't unpack policy to that extent. If you ask people, well, did you know the $25,000 that Kamala Harris proposed in her affordable housing policy was actually the policy that Biden proposed in March of this year? Probably not. If you ask, some of the things that Kamala Harris kind of lifted from Donald Trump, they probably don't know that because it's just much too granular. They know overall themes. And when it comes to themes, the theme for Donald Trump is that he would be much more aggressive in ensuring that we're not in these endless wars. Doesn't matter if that's not the actual case, it's what people are willing to believe. And Donald Trump has made the case over and over again. And I think it was something that ultimately ended up hurting Kamala Harris because she was parading around with Liz Cheney, not a Condoleezza Rice style Republican, but a Liz Cheney warmonger. So when Donald Trump was able to make the case that you, Liz Cheney, you're the neocon, you're the warmonger, that is something that resonates with people irrespective of which side you're on. And it doesn't matter if Donald Trump really didn't, the semantics of did he, keep us out of war? It's that muscular, that aggressive approach. And so to Manila's point, people know what they're, and I'll go further and say people know what they're getting with Donald Trump.
Well, I
love him or not.
In the end, that's I think what this election came down to. It was a devil you know versus a devil you don't know, and I saw people on Facebook saying like, oh, like, we just don't really, how could you say you don't know much about her? I'm like, how could you not say it? She had
we don't know anything
as vice president. She ran for 107 days. She squandered 40 of them. Didn't give any major speeches or interviews during that time. I mean, she had a truncated campaign. I suspect that was largely planned and that she was well aware of the fact that she was going to be president, or more likely than not. She just is. I mean, I'm looking forward to hearing all the whining and complaining from the Democrats. But the point is, they have no one to blame but themselves. They ran against a very weak candidate who should have been easy to defeat. And the fact that he wasn't, I can sit there and think about a bunch of Democrats who were on that debate stage in 2020 who could have beat Donald Trump. Cory Booker, let's say. I'm not saying these are people I would have voted for. I'm just saying the Democratic Party, from a tactical standpoint, approach, they just don't know what they're doing. They're idiots.
Well, once again, the polls were wrong, guys, just like they were in 2016. They were massively wrong. hugely wrong. But now that we're talking about the Democrats, let me throw this at you guys. For a long time, even on Radio Sputnik, I was saying this, that the Democrats are looking for a reset. And the reset is in the shape of one Gavin Newsom. And I've covered this on my own personal podcast, my weekly Friday podcast, where I have, I look at California politics a lot for obvious reasons, right? I'm a Californian and all my friends and family are still there. So it directly impacts me. Gavin Newsom has made this slow lurch to the middle, very slowly and methodically. And whether or not people like Gavin Newsom, doesn't matter. Your opinion about him doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is he's smart, he's polished, and he is great on the debate stage, as we saw with him versus Ron DeSantis for some unknown reason.
I think Ron DeSantis beat him.
Ron DeSantis did beat him. He did, but
I don't think so. Yeah. I think Gavin Newsom did well. I mean, I think the points were better made probably by DeSantis, but I think the perception was that Newsom, because he's so polished, right?
The optics.
Yeah, the optics.
It's the optics. The optics with that Newsom. I thought that Newsom actually, because debates isn't just about policy. It's about moments, and it's about optics. And when you have the side by side of straight, what does they call central casting, Gavin Newsom,
it's
very composed, and then at some point you saw a grimacing, Ron DeSantis, because he was frustrated with a point that Gavin was like, it was all in his face. Gavin was straight out of central casting, and Gavin Newsom, I believe, even as unpopular as he may seem to be nationwide, I think that Gavin Newsom would have done better against Joe Biden. Against Donald Trump than Kamala Harris, simply because Kamala Harris is just a uniquely bad candidate. It isn't about her experience or anything like that. She was a uniquely bad candidate who was incapable of pivoting. So when she began to sound like a robot, like they kept saying, okay, we want to know more about you, and she just kept, I believe in the aspirations, I believe in the, dreams and the aspirations of the American people. And it just became on a cycle, and she sounded robotic. So people did not know who Kamala Harris was, and they didn't have, to her credit, they didn't really have a long opportunity to know who she was. But I don't think that for Kamala Harris, like, this is it as far as her with politics. I don't think that there's, Pete Buttigieg, and I suspect Pete Buttigieg and Gavin Newsom will be leading front runner candidates for the Democratic Party in 2028. Wes Moore is going to try to throw his hat in the ring too, but he won't be able to win from Maryland. He may be a VP pick, but there are going to be a number of them who are going to throw their hat in the ring. I don't suspect that Tim Walz, for all intents and purposes, he did nothing for Kamala Harris. And so his career, as far as on the national stage, that's just going to be it.
Yeah, there's something about vice presidential running mates named Tim who work for females. And as someone whose name starts with a T, I don't know that I like that. The thing is, I would push back a little bit on that. Look, Tim Walz was the one sop that the Harris campaign made to the left. He was, as far as contemporary Democratic politics in 2024, what passes for progressivism. But the problem is they didn't, first of all, he was goofy.
Weird.
To quote a word, he was weird. And he was also, they didn't let him be him. I mean, one of the points, like Bush chose Cheney in part to say, like, to signal to his right flank, look, I've got this rabid attack dog who's running next to me. J.D. Vance is that for Trump. But for Walz to be that, for the progressives to feel like we have someone at the table in the form of Tim Walz, they would have needed to see Tim Walz say and do progressive things. They didn't let him do that. He was just out there, and of course, I wanted to talk. I mean, 3 out of 4 of us here are guys. Let's talk about the guy problem, right? I mean, basically, I've been asserting that, like, the Democrats have been talking at guys instead of to guys. And we have 58% of college students in the United States are female. Men commit suicide, suffer from heart disease, are higher unemployment, falling wages in far higher numbers than women. Men are the ones who are dropping dead from opioid overdoses more than women. Men are feeling, in the words of Gloria Steinem back in the 80s, left behind by feminism, and they feel like a lot of the advances of feminism have come at their expense, and they're not wrong, really. And so, the Trump campaign tapped into that. Might have just been an accident, just because that's who Trump is. He's butch. But but the Harris campaign, I think of like Michelle. And I also wanted to ask about this malfeasance. Van Jones, not someone who I respect or ever quote normally, but he and David Axelrod both said a couple of days before the election day that they had a queasy feeling watching these like glitzy celebrity star-filled Democratic events with Lady Gaga and so on. And it reminded me a little bit of being in high school, coming in on Monday morning to class and hearing the rich kids talk about like, oh, it was such a great party on Saturday. Everybody was there. And I'm like, I wasn't there. I was washing dishes at Friendly's. Or, on Monday morning when the kids would come in with their ski tag tied to the bottom of their puffy jacket, like, oh, we were out skiing. It was awesome. It's like, well, I was shoveling snow all weekend. So I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, the Democrats seem to be running, as if they're having a great party that you're not invited to. Donald Trump threw parties that looks like you could go if you wanted.
It was the real joy campaign, right? When people showed up. Look, I don't think I don't think that the Democrats had a candidate problem. They have a party problem. Really, they don't stand for anything. Be as it may, the Republicans, Donald Trump, they stand for certain things. They might be lying to you, but they might not be getting it done. They might be duping you, but at least they're putting stuff on the table that people want. From everything from inflation problems that we're going to fix. I don't know how he's going to do that, other than drill, baby, drill. He really doesn't have an economic plan. But people are feeling the hit financially. So when he says those things and they feel left out, especially a lot of, those uneducated white men that we talked about that are losing jobs, that have no employment, that are killing themselves every day. So he's actually speaking to them, where the Democrats, they're wagging their finger at the people, right? You can't vote for racism. You can't vote for this. He's a misogynist. You can't vote for that. They don't give you anything to vote for. They just simply to tell you to vote against something. And I really do think this is bigger than just a party problem, guys. I think this is a U.S. problem, right? We have no industry here. We don't make anything. We don't fix anything. So I'm very interested to see how things are going to be moving forward, because Donald Trump learned in his first presidency that you can't just bully the Chinese around and think that manufacturing is going to come home. No, you got a lot of problems, and a lot of problems that both parties put in front of you years ago, whether it be NAFTA, whether it be, the fact that, we're behind in our production compared to China when it comes to microchips. They're trying to fix that problem. So there's a lot of stuff on the table right now they have to work with. But I do also agree with Manila that they are going to use Gavin Newsom and a person like Buttigieg. That might be your next ticket in 4 years, because unfortunately the people here in America, the United States, the United States of amnesia, that's what Gore Vidal called them, so they can easily flip the script moving forward.
Yeah, but they need to clear the chessboard, and in order to do that, that's why they had to sacrifice Joe Biden a couple of months ago, because he represents the old guard. And Kamala Harris, I don't think she's a poor representation of new guard. And I think this is, I think they're going to take their lumps. They know it. I think I think internally the party knew.
They did know.
And they did know, because I've been monitoring Gavin Newsom's actions. I think he's been prepping himself for 2028 for the last 7 months. And
so Manila.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to add in there, in July of this year, right before Kamala Harris dropped out, I actually think it was about 2 weeks before they kicked Joe Biden out. They unseated him in the coup. There was a New York Times poll that came out. This was the poll that showed that Kamala Harris had historic unfavorability numbers for a vice president. I think she was at like 30, no, approval numbers. I think she was like 37%. In this same story, they talked about that one of the reasons Joe Biden was reluctant to get out of the race is because he didn't think that Kamala Harris could beat Joe Biden. There were Democratic insiders who were quoted in the article saying that they weren't confident that Kamala could win, and they were concerned that she played it too safe as vice president of the United States, not willing to take on any sort of controversial issues. So this was something, that's why I focus on Kamala Harris as the candidate. Do I believe that if, Kamala Harris were, let's say, Pete Buttigieg, or Kamala Harris were Gavin Newsom, even with this short period of time, with the same, negatives, if you will, they would be able to flip on a dime and articulate a case, meaning they won't just be doing the same robotic talking points. Even a Hillary Clinton, I'm not a fan of Hillary Clinton. You ask Hillary Clinton, how would you be different? Hillary Clinton would have a 10-point plan. Now, it may not necessarily answer your question, but she seemed as if she was informed. And I think you didn't see enough of that for Kamala Harris, and it did not give voters confidence. What Democrats also did, and I'll end it on this, when they started attacking Black men, when Barack Obama when he was in Pennsylvania, and he made the statement about Kamala Harris that we need to support her because she's from our community, she went to our schools, and he's noticing this strain about, because he was talking specifically to the brothers, as he said, and he noticed this strain of sexism and misogyny. Well, the problem is that it didn't end with Barack Obama. You had person after person, public figure after public figure, celebrity after celebrity, talking about Black men and this assumption about Black men and Kamala Harris. And what we saw in Pennsylvania, Donald Trump in 2020 got 10% of the overall Black vote in Pennsylvania. He was up, 7% in Pennsylvania in 2020. He upped the overall percentage to 10%. But when it comes to Black men in Pennsylvania, according to CNN exit polls, Donald Trump got 10% of the Black male vote in 2020. He got 26 this time around. So
Black MAGA is a thing. Black MAGA became a thing.
And it may not, that's not about Trump. Like that's like, it's not even, that's not about Trump.
It's about turnout, enthusiasm.
It's about the Democrats.
A rejection of the system. It was a rejection of the Democratic Party, not so much being in love with Donald Trump. It was a
Michelle Obama,
rejection.
who, everyone talks about what a great political figure she is. I mean, she gave crazy speech where she was saying, like, you guys, you don't know what it's like to be a woman. You owe us support. And I was just thinking, like, you know what you sound like? You sound like everybody's first wife. And like,
Ted.
and like, we hate you. And so I remember thinking, I wouldn't vote against a woman because of a statement like that. But I know it's not helping with guys. They needed to get someone who spoke fluent dude.
That's true.
They don't have anyone.
Oprah did it too. Remember, Oprah came right up on, what was that, Sunday, and said that, it's possible that we may never ever get a chance to vote again. She didn't believe that.
Give me a break.
It's such a ridiculous statement to say. Like,
by the way,
if I say something, and you know what? Guys, I mean, I really think that we have to also point out that sometimes when you win, you lose, and sometimes when you lose, you win. And that is the case for the Democrats here, because it's the only thing I think that is going to save their party. Now they can start their massive, fundraising campaign with the TDS, and they can then again rebrand with Gavin Newsom.
The grift is on. But I gotta say,
the grift gets the money.
For the last 4 years, we've been hearing that the return of Donald Trump will hearken, jackbooted thugs, goose stepping through the streets, and so the Democrats, they never believed that. And you know how I can prove that? I can prove that because right now, if people thought that was true, right now the airports would be clogged, full of Democrats trying to get out of the country. Right now, Democrats and liberal groups, like, they would be gathering and doing massive protests. There would be like a January 6th, but progressive style, like, don't let that guy take the oath of office. None of that is going to happen. They're just going to sit there and whinge.
Yeah, but aren't we concerned a little bit? I think that our good friend Robbie shared a little tweet with me over there, and this is something that I'm concerned. It's on my list. 45% from Latinos while running a massive deportation campaign. I just don't get it, man. I mean, listen, he had one debate against Kamala Harris, and when you want to talk about the same kind of optics, when you're looking at the whole DeSantis versus Newsom, you're right. In a lot of ways, Newsom's handled it well, but the issues favored DeSantis. It's the same thing here with Donald Trump, but then he lost that debate because he mentioned Haitians and cats and dogs. I mean, he heard
wait. Do you really think
he still won?
Let me play devil's advocate, and I did say this at the time. If you have the most memorable line of the debate, even if it's one like that, have you really lost? He lost. That debate really cost him a lot of things. I think a lot of people were upset, a lot of undecided voters, people who are independents, when they heard that there, and they didn't hear any mention of the deep state or the donors when he used to attack power. That was gone. Now it was obvious he was blaming everything on immigrants and communism. He lost a lot there, but the Democrats are so bad that he still won at the end of the day.
I can agree with that. I think this time around, Trump did not have the same zest and appeal that he had originally in 2016.
That's true.
Different candidate.
Yeah, different guy. He was
he's calmer. He's longer in the tooth. Well, I mean, he's Bidening out in many respects.
But also, though, keep in mind, Donald Trump performed better than he did even in 2016 among key groups. So that's also something
and he
to
outperformed
consider.
Biden. I mean, look, here's a question.
Yes.
How bad the Democrats are. That's what I'm saying. It just shows you because they're so awful.
Where is Joe?
Is whatever's left of Joe Biden saying to
what do they stand for?
Jill, I could have done better than Kamala, and if he's saying that,
he's saying it.
Is he right?
Where is he?
I've said that what I thought would happen is that if Joe Biden got in the race, once you got past convention and it came down really to that binary choice that they kept talking about, all of that anti-Joe Biden sentiment, unless he just fell on stage, I think that people would have held their nose and support. They would have moved back over to Joe Biden if they felt as if Donald Trump was the threat to democracy that Democrats said that he was, because that's what they ran on. Donald Trump was a threat to democracy. People did not believe that Donald Trump was a threat to democracy, but that's the case that they had to make, and they simply could not continue to make the case. Because when you have what looks to be, I think the last number I saw, Donald Trump was maybe almost at 70 million votes. If he gets the popular vote over Kamala Harris, which is the first time since 2004 George W. Bush in his reelection, that would be cataclysmic. And I think that is something that will be studied from now and forevermore. But there's a lot to be learned. I'm not sure if Democrats or even Republicans, for that matter, will learn the lesson that they need to.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Oh, go ahead, Ted. Final thoughts.
I mean, I agree with that. I mean, what is sad, and I mean, there's a lot of things that are sad about this, but as usual, and I think of, sometimes when I have thoughts like this, I think of Pasta, because he always comes back to this, and I think it's true. I mean, this is bourgeois electoral bullshit, right? I mean, basically, these parties, they put on a show every 2 to 4 years, and they talk about everything and nothing that actually affects people's lives at all. I mean, there's no talk about putting more money into more people's pockets. There's no talk about like making healthcare affordable instead of a luxury. There's no talk about making college affordable rather than luxury. Anything that actually making it easier to form a union to or protect workers when they negotiate with their bosses. Nothing that actually changes people's lives, addresses the climate crisis. I could go on. The real issues that really matter are just, and this campaign did not address really any of them in any kind of meaningful way. I mean, Kamala Harris came out in favor of fracking. I mean, that says it all, right?
Yeah. Which is
But
the
you know
one
what?
area where you got some serious argument about the climate crisis. When I think that's a Democrat issue too, as well, because it's been so overplayed. We haven't had any real nuanced conversations. I don't know what it is, Ted, with you guys in this climate crisis over there, right? You know what I'm saying? Especially the people who are coming forth and acting like they want to fix it. They don't want to fix it. This is about consolidating the small farmers into the big farmers. And if we're really concerned, right, all the Kamala Harris people were so really concerned about climate change, then they should have been against the Ukraine-Russia war, because I think that's ruining the climate more than anything else. I'm sorry, Malik, I stepped on your word.
Oh, no. That's fine. No, I didn't have much else to add to that at all. I just think that there is once we get on the other side of this, I suspect that there probably won't be much unity, because Donald Trump certainly wouldn't be bringing any unity, and I don't think that Kamala Harris would have, because we're such a divided country. I think that they're going to continue this case against Donald Trump. But for people like me, and I'll say, for people like me who left the Democratic Party first time voting for Donald Trump in 2016, disappointed that I didn't get a chance to vote for him in 2020. This is a redemption tour for many of us. Like, this is our moment. So it's not even just about Donald Trump. For those of us who lost relationships, lost opportunities because of our connection or our support for Donald Trump, this is like our moment. So it's bigger than Donald Trump.
Can I say something? I do disagree with you, though. I think there is a chance for unity. I always believe it's about the economy, stupid, right? Money talks and bullshit runs the marathon. So if there's a way that Donald Trump can bring some form of manufacturing back, get a real infrastructure bill, not this fugazi one that, a lot of Democrats like to tout, where nothing's really going on. It was just all about, kind of, once again, consolidation of power and track and trace within that infrastructure bills. But if he finds a way to bring finances, put money in people's pockets, lower the cost of groceries and gas for real, and people can get some sense of relief. I mean, for real. Can he
Hey guys, I got another.
People?
I have to get on another call.
Okay.
Okay.
So I have to talk later, guys. All right, we have to catch up.
Sorry.
Alrighty.
Bye, Malik.
I miss Malik.
Malik's so great.
He's awesome.
We all miss each other. I mean,
Here's
my
a question.
Pure self-interest, Ted, we might all have jobs. Maybe.
I was just going to ask you that. Yeah. Do you think there's going to be a meeting between Putin and Trump, and Putin will hand a list of requests over to Trump and say, hey, here's some requests. You think you can maybe take the sanctions away?
Right. I hope. Right, possibly.
Listen, I always repeat the Burgess Meredith line, right? That's the guy who was Mickey for Rocky. And in Grumpier Old Men, he said you can wish in one hand and crap in the other and see which one gets filled first. I don't see it coming. It is possible. I hope it does happen. I really hope he lives the sanctions. But I don't see Donald Trump as a free speech advocate. I really don't. He's talking about putting people in jail for a year for burning the flag. And we all know what happened with Julian Assange.
Pasta, he talks shit. I mean, aside from the Mike Pompeo bullshit, I mean, I pray to God that guy,
that's pretty big,
never comes back. But Trump is a lot of bluster. We know that. Like, he's like, oh, I'm going to be a dictator on day one. I'm going to do, like, he talks shit, right? Like, he's a New Yorker. He talks shit. And then it never happens. The shit that he talks, never happens. I mean, look at that's any politician.
Look,
it's always some of the stuff.
I'm on I'm on Truth Social. I'm not throttled. Gavin Newsom is on Truth Social. He has a big following. I'm on Facebook. I'm throttled. My show on Sputnik canceled, throttled by the Biden White House. So I don't know. I mean, it does seem
that's the only evidence I have is what the Democrats have done to me personally,
and me,
and have unemployed me and all of my friends.
The guy who fired me and smeared me at the LA Times, Clinton donor, Democrat, Austin Butner. I mean, it's not like
the Twitter files, right? Like Matt Taibbi exposed all of that, the bullshit that like, we can pin this on Biden, sure, but we're out of election season now. Let's just pin it squarely and place it at the fucking feet of the Democratic Party. They are the pro-censorship party. They have proven it. We
That's
can
true.
speculate all we want about Donald Trump or
We'll
the
see.
Republicans being that, but what I know and what I've lived through personally is seeing what
I've gotten censored a lot more by
outgoing Obama White House did to
my right-wing
staff that was still at the State Department.
My right-wing clients have been a lot less, much more solicitous about letting me express myself. Like editorial page of the Wall Street Journal, you know, I can't get onto the editorial page of the New York Times. You know, Wall Street Journal has a better editorial page, so it's not a quality thing. You know, it's like I can get on Fox News, I can't get on MSNBC.
Right.
You know, I working for Mother Jones of The Nation, The Progressive was a shit show. Working for Forbes, working for Fortune, easy peasy. So
the progressives have constantly pushed the Russiagate narrative. Rachel Maddow tried to revive it for a third time. She brought it up last night. Like, she stopped the show mid-show and said, I got a text message. My sources at the FBI are telling me that Russian-related email accounts were emailing bomb threats into the swing states.
Bullshit.
Really? You're going to email that?
You get the right Georgia right.
I got to ask you both what you think about this. I mean, look, up until a couple of days ago, the main concern was that Kamala Harris is going to win. Donald Trump's followers weren't going to accept it. There was going to be civil strife, political violence, mass shootings, you know, crazy right-wingers gone wild. Now I have to ask, is there going to be a protest movement that, I mean, there really wasn't, except for, you know, the Pink Pussy Hat Brigade that basically marched 1.5 times, and that was about it in the first Trump years. Is it going to be basically more flaccid bullshit, or are we going to see, you know, an actual, I don't know, liberal, or Democratic, or progressive, or socialist, or none of the above movement?
I think you're going to see those same ladies dust off the pussy hats, right? Get out to the street. You're going to see a little fizzle of it, you know. But listen, TDS is a thing, right? TDS,
it's real.
CDS, a COVID derangement syndrome, you know, Trump derangement syndrome. These are real things. And like I said, for me, I think the Democrats wanted to lose. That's why they chose Kamala. And now they can start their fundraising. We'll see. You know, it all depends on the organization. But I do believe, Ted, that you did hit a point over there. And that is, I don't think the same moves they've been playing for so long, the oh my God kind of factor, right, really plays well with them. And unfortunately for the Democrats, a lot of the areas in which they should be criticizing Donald Trump, they can't do it because they're guilty of those things themselves. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so, I mean,
you know,
insider
when have they ever
trading.
cared about the pot calling the kettle black?
Yes. So they stay away from those things. Emoluments, they stay away from them because they're just as guilty. So it is going to be interesting, but this is a chance for rebranding. We'll see what they come up with. I hope the circus is entertaining.
It will be. Last thing I want to put up there, because we're way over time. I'm gonna put it to all of us here because I want to leave it on a fun note. Because, like you said, Pasta, this is gonna be a freaking circus because the Carnival Barker is back in town, and he's bringing a whole brand new bunch of acts with him, supposedly, right? So, meanwhile, outgoing POTUS, the one that's supposedly rightfully elected last time, most votes ever, more than Obama, Joe Biden. Where is old Joe? Where is Jill? Are they going to be at the, Kamala's side when she gives a speech coming up here pretty soon at Howard? Where is the old man?
They won't be at her side. They will not.
Does he know what's going on? Where do you guys think, what happens to old Joe? Does he sail off into the sunset somewhere?
I mean, they're already on borrowed time with this guy, right? I think that there was a little bump once Kamala Harris became the nominee simply because she could find her way off stage, right? So, I mean, there was that whole thing going on. No, I believe that, really, to tell you the truth. Like, all right, this this woman's at least competent. She can, put full
She can
sentences
walk.
together. She can read the teleprompter perfectly. So, I mean, listen, I think they were on borrowed time. I don't think he's been calling shots for quite some time. He is just going to sail off into the sunset. I don't think we'll see much out of him. I think he will. His last time we'll see him publicly will be at Trump's inauguration, right? Like, I
You
think
think he'll be there?
I think
He'll
so.
be
I'm going to bet that he is, just to kind of act like, oh, Joe is being classy, and you'll hear Van Jones, Ted's favorite commentator, go on TV and start, I love that man. He was there and he stood with the president. Like, I think you're going to see one of those moments. Look, the Democrats love the theater. So if they have a chance to milk it, they will. And that will be my personal prediction as far as Joe Biden's last dance.
I agree with that completely, 100%. Also, I just want to point out, it was always predicted by the guys who wrote 13th Gen, the demographers, Howell and Strauss, who wrote about generational politics in the United States. That is a book that I need to send you, Manila. That is a Manila Chance special. And they started writing about this in the late 80s. Anyway, the point is, they said Gen X would never have a president. And Kamala was a Gen Xer. So I guess she was probably, they're going to skip straight to the millennials. Our next president will probably be Vance.
I hope
You
not.
think so?
I hope not. I don't
hope
know.
Not, but I believe so.
This
is
the area in which a lot of these, when you say you got a lot of low informed voters, this is the way that Donald Trump was able to get in. If it was Donald Trump's hardcore base people, they would have rejected JD Vance getting selected simply because he's a Peter Thiel guy, right? So, I mean, I hope that he does not become the president. Him being the vice president was another area in which I said, oh, no, not that guy. But yeah, that guy is there.
Last thing I'll say is I will point out that Usha Vance is going to be the first brown lady, first lady of color as the second lady in the White House. That's pretty cool. So I think that, if you're looking for a little representation, you got a biracial couple, in the second seat. Right. So that's pretty cool. And as far as Biden goes, I'm of the mind that if he shows up to the Trump inauguration, it'll be out of pure spite. But I'm more inclined to say that he's not going to show up because he is going to be a bitter old man.
Nah, he's coming.
Way.
Pasta's,
you think so?
Pasta's right. He's going to be.
I think he's going to be bitter and just say,
because his whole shtick is I'm about normalcy, and normalcy is the outgoing.
Yeah, we've reported on our old show, Ted. There were leaks coming out about Biden a year and a half ago about what a crotchety old man and how awful he was to work for. He's an asshole. Yeah. And I think when you get into senility like that, you lose all of your filter.
That's true.
And I think
you may be right.
But
he's
let
going
me
to say, fuck you all, I'm not going.
Let me say this, Angie. Let me say this. Joe Biden's big beef right now is with the Democratic Party. He feels they threw him under the bus. What a better way to stick it to all those Democrats than to say, I'm going to go up there and shake Donald Trump's hand and throw it in their face. So, him being a dick, this would be the next move he would make. So, he played the part in saying how bad Donald Trump was. But you saw him put on the hat, right? The Donald Trump hat.
That was pretty weird.
That's going to be his last dance, in my personal opinion.
By the way,
he did everything to
the Democrats.
He did everything to harm Harris the last 2 months. So
this is kind of analogous to what happened in '68. LBJ withdrew, and he wasn't much help to Humphrey, and Humphrey lost by a fairly narrow, in a squeeze, right? So I don't know. I'm gonna a rabid right-wing regime, although by today's standards, Richard Nixon was a left-winger.
Sure. Of course. Sure. So we'll leave that right there. I know what I'm looking for at the Harris concession speech coming up in I think in a little bit. I'm literally going to be surfing to look to see the White House cam. Where's old Joe? And how many of them come out of the White House because all his doubles and stuff. I'm serious. I'm serious. There was this one time that he came out 3 feet taller than Jill Biden after it was a very strange.
That's the acid flashback. That's that little globule. It's really brain.
Maybe the double goes to the inauguration.
We should wrap it up.
I'm looking for the next Trump speech when he addresses again. If he's going to do what he did when he won in 2016, he was very loving to Hillary Clinton and went from lock her up to she's a good woman, she's a civil servant, she's done well. So I'm looking for that.
That's what I'm saying.
Because I think
Donald
Trump is.
See?
Yeah, it's not
Trump
personal.
It's a lot of bluster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
right.
Thanks, Pasta.
We'll make that the last word. Thank you so much, Pasta. You guys go check out his show, Pasta to Go. And Pasta, you and Fee still do a show, yeah?
Yes, we it's called Truth Wire. We did a very long stream yesterday. So go check out Truth Wire. It's the old Convo couch. We're dancing around the censorship over here. We're trying our hardest. So let's see if Donald Trump put his money where his mouth is. I'd like to see a full audit of YouTube, right? Like let's see what's going on behind the curtain over there.
Like a Twitter files for YouTube.
I wouldn't mind.
Yes.
God,
but with source material, not just screenshots.
Yep.
Well, okay, fair enough. So you guys go support Pasta and Fee over there as well. Thank you so much for hanging out the whole time, Pasta. You are awesome. Thank you.
Love you guys. Miss you.
Bye. Talk to you soon.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.
All right. So that is our predictions going into 2025. So Ted, we'll see. I think, to be honest, I think we've actually done pretty good in our predictions.
Yeah, well, we did call it. We did say that this was likelier than not that that Trump was going to win. I
vacillated. I admit, I vacillated.
I have been pretty convinced. I can't really take a huge victory lap, although I did win a number of bets with friends over this. So I'm going to be collecting some meals and some booze.
Nice.
But it's definitely, it gives me no pleasure, really. I mean, the only outcomes that would have made me happy would have been to see Jill Stein, Cornel West, or Chase Oliver win the presidency. And I already lost before yesterday's. So, and America has lost this. It's useful to think of this whole situation as yet another symptom of something that Trump talks about, ironically, American decline. And this is a collapsing society. He's right about that. He's a symptom of it. I don't know that he can help fix it. I don't,
he's not the
Roman
antidote.
Empire was falling apart in the third and fourth centuries, and Emperor Hadrian was like the last of the really good emperors. Maybe Trump will be that. There's not much evidence to support that, but at least he does recognize verbally, oratorically, that we are in decline. And honestly, super important, because the first step is admitting that you have a problem.
Yeah. And I can't underscore enough for all the people going, Manila's been red pilled forever and ever. Drew, I'm talking to you out there. That it's not, COVID kind of red pilled me a little bit from the left. It kind of revealed a lot of things to me. So for the last many years, but I am under no illusion, Ted, that sure, I gave this guy my vote begrudgingly because I'm facing the facts. Jill Stein was not going to win. Chase Oliver was not going to win. Cornel West didn't even measure a tick on the polls yesterday, at least. And Kennedy, who dropped out officially, still measurable numbers, right? Dr. West didn't even have measurable numbers. So, I mean, the reality is none of those people was going to win. And I decided when I got into the booth and I stared down at the names and the bubbles, and I chose a big middle finger to the Democrats, and it just came in the form of Orange Man. Do I believe everything that he says? Of course not. But I don't believe it on both things, the promises he makes or the bullshit that he says, like he's going to be a dictator on day one. I don't believe.
Well, first of all, he didn't really say that. He was joking.
I know he was joking.
By the way,
that's the point.
Stevens of the New York Times, not someone who I agree with very often. I don't think, but a broken clock twice a day, blah, blah, blah. The headline of his piece today is "A Party of Prigs and Pontificators Suffers a Humiliating Defeat." Prigs and pontificators is about right. They're prigs. It's like we're more concerned about you using the right vocabulary than we
Yes.
are about whether you can afford to pay your rent. Pontificators, like, we know what's better than you do, and we're not going to teach you or explain it to you. We just know, so we're going to bully you into doing
Right.
saying what we say. They're prigs and pontificators, and Americans don't care for it.
Look,
Americans
nobody
also
puts baby in a corner. That's all I'm
Americans
going to
also
say,
have a
Ted.
sense of Americans also have a sense of fair play. It's an important cultural value for us, and I think we probably, when if it was possible to game it out and through game theory AI and try to figure out, if you could take away the lawfare, does Donald Trump win?
Sure.
I suspect not.
Yeah.
What did kill him made him a lot stronger.
I did what I did, and I voted how I did, and I'm perfectly okay with it. Do I believe he's gonna, rescue Gaza? Hell no. Is he gonna be slightly less worry than Harris? I believe so, by the sheer fact that she is backed by all the neocons and the Cheneys. That was what I was voting against.
And
So
yeah,
I
what Pasta
didn't vote
said,
for
I
Trump.
disagree with respectfully about what he said about the Afghanistan thing. I mean, look, that was a game changer. He had those talks in Doha. They did no talks, no withdrawal. Biden didn't get that idea on his own.
Yeah. So we'll see, Ted. We'll do this again tomorrow. We'll see if we can get real Angie on, not
Let's get
wrong Angie.
Yeah.
We got to call.
We should ask Scott.
She was at Mar-a-Lago. She was at Mar-a-Lago last night. So,
I'm sure she was.
So I'm sure she's going to need a couple of days to recover, because Mama probably really enjoyed herself at Mar-a-Lago.
I'm sure she did. So. Yeah, congratulations, Angie. Really, truly.
Yeah, congrats to Angie. She's out there doing the legwork for stuff like this. So whether or not you like her politics doesn't matter. She put in a lot of work for that campaign, and she's our friend, and she actually is a really nice person. So
that's true.
We want she was an insider. That's the most important thing, is she's an insider, and she can, once the dust settles, she can join us. I'm sure she'll say yes. She can join us to kind of give us a little bit of a postmortem of how this all happened. So we'll do this again. We'll do this again. All right. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Please remember to hit the subscribe and the like, the thumbs up. Please share it. If you are watching this on a desktop on that platform, Rumble, you can go into the chat area right below, hit the subscribe button, become a $5 a month monthly subscriber, so we can help maintain this show. It is 100% viewer funded. Right now, it's basically, we're working on pennies here. So we would like to keep doing this for you, unfiltered as we've been. So please support us by doing that. Other than that, any last words, Ted? We'll see you tomorrow, though.
Guys, to my liberal friends, hang in there. You got through 4 years. You'll be all right.
Amen. All right. Hasta mañana, amigos. See you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.